client practitioner, joins us to bring a common sense approach to money in a world of total insanity. Let's welcome Tony D'Angelo.
All right, 67 minutes in the books. And what do we got? I can't do the math. That would be 2 hours and 53 minutes to go. But I'm not counting. I miss you guys. I like being here. I love being here, as a matter of fact. And we love our next guest. Again, he has built up one hell of a reputation on Twitter. We appreciate him joining us each and every Tuesday. You can follow him, Tony D'Angelo 7, on that their Twitter. Tony, good morning. How are you?
Good morning, Lee Elci. Good morning, everybody. Proud to be among you. You know, Lee, I absolutely loved your monologue again about what people tell you and what they ask for you to believe and what they ask for you to believe without question. Now, for everybody that has been good enough to follow, what we do here, every week, or what we have been doing, at least in this particular series and segment, is what I see my role here as is calling the balls and strikes. I mean, to me, things go beyond politics. They go really what is right, what is wrong, what is clear, what is not clear, and don't give me a camel and tell me it's an elephant. And when we one thing really got me this week, in that we started to look at the Ned Lamont, the Governor Ned Lamont of Connecticut, the financial disclosures, and I started to just shake my head, because when I got up this morning, I got up very early, came in from out of town, still trying to get things back on track, and I said to myself, to your monologue, how many times in my life, or when will it finally go to where I stop being lied to, or where people in authority tell me that something is what it isn't? And I'm going to show you today that what we have here is just the sea of farce, and that Governor Ned Lamont has done nothing but feed pap nonsense to the world for 3.5 years, and we're all supposed to believe it. And really, other than just a good few people, no one has held him to account. Now, fast forward, if you will. Last Friday, we had the $54 million 2021 announcement. This was his income, and he is a wonderful guy. Now, stop and think about what happened here. And, for once in Connecticut's life, think. We're going back to the old blue sign at IBM. Think. What these journalistic people in a room were handed from Governor Conman Ned, was a summary of what was there. They were only allowed by several accounts to look at this for 20 minutes. After that, it was time's up, pencils down, hand the papers back. And this summary that they were handed is not even a facsimile copy of a tax return. If you're studying at home, look at your tax return. Look at where you signed, or whatever the declaration is. There's something there known as a penalty of perjury. Everything I'm saying here is true. Ned gave no such thing. Ned made a summary, and then he pulled it away. Now, this is the equivalent. Stop and think about this. This is the governor of the state of Connecticut, people. I go to buy a washing machine, and I've had a wonderful, terrific experience with the Keith folks here. I mean, great people. And let's just say instead of dealing with them, I went to deal with, Slimy Charlie. And Slimy Charlie says, okay, Tony, you get a washing machine. It's going to be out there in, 2 weeks, and give me the money, and we'll see you. So I go home, and I say to Kathy, it's like, well, we got the washing machine. Well, do you have a contract? Well, no. Do you have a record of what you paid? Well, no. I mean, she will commit me rightfully to the incompetence assignment. But yet when it comes to Ned, hey, this is great, and I'm thinking to myself, what is wrong with you people? No one no one said, he didn't give us anything. It's like, well, this is great. And he made another representation. He said, or, more properly, his spokesman, I believe it was Jake Lewis, said, his assets have been placed in a blind trust. Oh, okay. Let's take a look at that. Now, I think now we've got these people who have been reporting on him. Actually, I think they're, if I'm going to use the term sycophants, toadies, and lackeys, but of just like, yeah, okay, that's great. But we need to understand something fundamentally here. What is a blind trust and what does it do? And what actually did Ned do? Since we know Ned lies like a cheap carpet, we need to figure this out. So let's look at what a blind trust is. I gave my assets to someone. I'm clean and pure as the driven snow. A blind trust, okay, is a legal vehicle where an elected official transfers, now underline the word transfers, his assets to a trustee, underline the word trustee, and retains no influence, dominion, or control. You can't see it. You can't change it. It is irrevocable for a term. I'm off the ball. I am governor. Those assets go to someone I trust. Now, the key thing is transferring power and control and even knowledge. Now, does Ned do this? Not hardly. Ned being Ned, decides to go the con game route. A little bit of background of what Ned did do. In order to find out what Ned didn't do, you got to find out what Ned did do. In 2019, Ned, through his then counsel, Robert Clark, self-constructs an ethics agreement where he says, well, look at me, I'm a wonderful guy, I did this agreement. But actually what he's doing is he's writing the rules of how he's going to act. He's doing the tapestry. Now, the agreement is 16 pages, and I scratch my head. Again, they want me to believe what they want to tell me, meaning they, the media, the political system, but they themselves cannot read 16 pages and digest that over the scope of 3.5 years. Page 5 of the agreement, Part C. He talks about something known as an independent intermediary to manage assets, and you read down a little bit, and they refer to the Lamont as the grantors, fancy term for the person transferring the assets, intends to grant, not granted, but intends to grant a durable power of attorney to somebody called an independent intermediary. Now, first fundamental difference, and I'm sorry for trust class today, but I think it's imperative that we understand this. A power of attorney is not a trustee. Not in a blind trustee, forget about it, off the planet. A power of attorney is not a trustee. A power of attorney has no legal duty to do anything and has to act the way that he's either trusted or he's there to do something that somebody tells you. For example, if I were your power of attorney and you were to say to me, go purchase a red truck, and I came back with a blue truck, that's off my chart. Whereas if I were your trustee, I would be able to say, no, Lee Elci, a blue truck is better for you, and there's nothing you can do about it. The fundamental thing here is there is no transfer of assets to a party whatsoever. There's no legal doctrine. Now, you read on a little bit. This particular person, and Ned, and if you call independent intermediary, call him Yabba Dabba Doo. It doesn't really matter. There is no duty. There is no rule of law. There is no rule of anything saying that a power of attorney. The term independent intermediary is really kind of a diversionary red herring. There's no legal duty where a power of attorney and a principal or a grantor can't speak. As a matter of fact, you want to speak to your power of attorney. One of those Rocky movies, where Rocky had to fight again because his power of attorney ripped him off. I mean, that's the whole purpose of it. One's a boat, the other's a plane. They're two different things. So let's look first at what Ned did. He schmoozes into thinking he's got a blind trust, but all he's really got is a power of attorney. And in summation, he can do whatever he darn well pleases. Now, one thing I did omit here, and it's actually critical mass, and I'm sorry, going back to page 6. If you look on page 6 in that same provision, all of the Oak deals, all of the then Oak deals are excluded from this power of attorney's dominion. And it actually, when you look at that, Ned wants you to think that, all right, I'm ethical. The Oak deals are off the charts. The POA doesn't even get involved in that, POA being power of attorney. So it's just the whole sham and charade of con man Ned trying to tell you that he did something that he really didn't do. And it even gets a little bit more hairy than that, the Oak deals, right? When this was done in May of 2019, he has his agreement, he charges out, and he says, here's my agreement. And at that point, there's just Oak HCFT. Now, Oak HCFT 3 comes along in August of 2019, and 4 comes along after that. They're both, as we've talked about, Cayman Island entities. Now, if you are, quote unquote, an ethical man, if you are a prescient man, you understand things change. You understand you've got to say, well, this has changed. We've got to include these other things. He doesn't even do that. He parades around with the same agreement. He says, this is a blind trust. This is, I am this wonderful ethical person. And there is nothing absolutely whatsoever that prohibits him from doing anything. And I'll leave you with this last thought, at least on, this particular sequence. $54 million, which that was the Semaphore public offering year. Nothing stopped him from cashing it on game day. Nothing whatsoever. We'll get to what he did do and the fact of how he manipulated this in a moment. But I mean, it's like this is how this guy is playing, and it's an absolute positive shame.
Well, that was where I was going to ask you. My next question, or the question I was going to ask you, was going to be, what exactly did he do? Well, we now know, the sort of cloak that he threw up there and the charade that he has played.
Yeah, it's a veneer.
But now let me get to, what did he do? What deals? Okay. What deals did he? Was he able to accomplish under the blindness of darkness? I guess the $54 million that he made. How did he get it? Give me a little background on some of that stuff, if you got it.
Well, put it this way: to be purely positive, or shall I say, to be purely positive. That walks like a duck, it quacks like a duck, it smells like a duck. We can't put our finger exactly on that because he is not furnishing any proof of it. But what did he do? So let's look at his tapestry. His tapestry is that he propped up a POA. The actions are purely voluntary. They can do whatever they want, and then the family deals are excluded. What did he do since then? We absolutely positively know there was the pandemic rental scam in Connecticut that these same people that are covering him didn't cover at all. That we did this about maybe, I think, a little bit more than a year ago, or almost a year ago. There was $300 and something million, of which $9 million went for accounting, and it was in something called Unite CT. The reason why it was named Unite CT, because they were using the Unite Us Lamont software to do all of the, whatever you want to call it, rental tabulations and who got what. And this is something you probably could have done on a spreadsheet, or at least with a couple of good college interns, for crying out loud. You're handing out money. And we know that this went on. It was a great way to get an investment into an existing Lamont entity. We also know for certain. Now, people say, "Where's the smoking gun?" Well, to me, I'm watching the town burn down. But we also know, and we've got this slide. We've shown this slide. $93 million of an Oak investment is in the state pension. It's under a cloak of Hamilton Lane, and it's there. Now, if you had a real ethical agreement, I shall not deal with the state regardless of what takes place. No way, shape, or form. It doesn't really matter. But we know that. It's there. Nobody says a word. We also know about Semaphore, how does the money get to, or how does all that profit get realized? Well, I have this ethics agreement. Well, this ethics agreement people does not cover a Lamont entity that came along after the ethics agreement. It's not a party to the proceedings. We also know about My Connecticut Savings. We talked about that on this show. Where Annie's partner gets the financial operations on this thing. There's no firewalls, and this guy is just running from every single thing that he's saying he's doing, and really, it's a con game. See it for what it is.
Yeah. Listen, we have been beating this drum forever, and again, I think this is another huge piece of information that you're unleashing on the public. The question is, there's really, other than obviously what you're saying today, is there any direct link that links him to, let's say, using his position? We know about Semaphore, but for the $54 million that he put in his own pocket, is there a direct line from A to B?
I think the pension is huge.
Right.
How does that get there? Why does the pension make that investment? In quote unquote, a Lamont equity. I think Unite CT is huge.
Right.
I think about, My CT Savings is huge. And the other thing, and this is, put it this way, where and those I think are C-swing hit. To me they're plain as day. But there's nothing at all, and this is the thing which absolutely positively fries me. If the DECD stakes an entity, Digital Currency Group's a great example, there's nothing whatsoever stopping any of these other NED things from making an investment in one of these, whatever you want to call it, offshore entities that aren't covered. Now, you asked the question, is there anything, C-swing hit? I believe the examples I gave you were C-swing hit.
Right.
But these other things are, an ethical man would say, no, this is wrong. We're not going to have any of this. We're not going to give the appearance of darkness,
right,
let alone, walk around in the cloak of darkness, and I'm going to hand out little pieces of paper that you're not going to be able to take home and say that's my tax return. It's like, what horror movie am I watching?
Well, that's exactly the point, even though I did a bad job asking the question. That was the point.
You did a great job.
No, that was the point I was trying to make, though, Tony. It's like, okay, so you've got somebody in these positions of power, supposedly, they don't need any more money. They're wealthy beyond, most people's imagination. Yet, under the cloak of darkness, they seem to be maneuvering in secrecy on all these different areas. You're the governor of a state. Does it really have to be about money? And now, so what's going to happen if we get another 4 years of this? How much more will he siphon out of the pockets of Connecticut citizens if this is the case? Right.
And how many sycophants, enablers, and toadies will cover him? And this is just it. 30 years ago, when we were working, with the people in the Bush administration to set up the blind trust for the cabinet members, I had Nicholas Brady's. There's an act. There's an act in 1978, the Ethics in Government Act. You could read it. We had to follow it. And it tells you exactly what has to happen. The person has to be separated entirely from any dealings whatsoever. There can't even be something in, whatever you want to call it, there can't even be an off-the-wall thing coming back to him. But basically, this guy is just going on, saying, well, I've got this, and he tosses around this term blind trust. And, the only people that are blind are the people in government who aren't reading these 16 pages and, the so-called, whatever you want to call it, for what passes in the state as mainstream media. It's terrible.
Didn't the media lose their mind when Trump gave his companies to his kids because it wasn't technically, didn't they? Am I remembering that correctly or no?
Well, yeah, and you are, and basically, the way this thing goes down is, Democrat, Republican, Martian, German. You have a fiduciary duty to a state. You shouldn't have the appearance of evil. And it's not hard to say we're off the ball on everything. And not only that, but, there's also like the recusal list. And that's, the Lamont companies don't deal with the state. Go back and read that agreement, people. Go back and read those 16 pages. Ned decides when he wants to put out the recusal list. So he can do a little, kind of ping-pong back and forth, and then then take the company off the list and say, here. The last time that list came out is when Bob Stefanowski pressed them on it. We haven't seen it since. It is so egregious. It's amazing.
Yeah. Tony, you did a great job again, as usual. I appreciate you doing the due diligence and sharing it.
It's tough stuff, and I apologize for the difficulty of it, but that's how this guy rolls. It's con man 101.
So, like we did last time, give me a 30-second sort of recap of what you just broke down for everybody, if you don't mind.
Ned Lamont tells you he has a blind trust. He has no blind trust. He works through a power of attorney whom he can communicate with daily. There is no firewall. There is no separation. People, this is a con game, pure and simple. Tony D'Angelo, Lee Elci Show, October 25th, 2022, 7:27 a.m.
Thank you, Tony.
You're welcome, Lee.
All right, buddy. Good